Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a NARS update. Thanks to Kendria, we have another resource that we have decided to give you. I'm Joe Hauser. I'm from the Ohio Nursing Association. I have both a prover unit and a provider unit accredited through ANCC. So I will kind of go over a little bit on the approver side on what you need to do to make sure you're submitting your NARS system or your NARS reports to ANCC. And then we have Kendria who will be able to answer a lot of questions. And then we also have Andrea Goodman. She's from Indiana. She is an approved provider through ONA, and she is one. She made some batch uploading videos for me, and we're actually going to have her make some batch uploading videos for you guys as references, and that'll probably be available next week sometime. We just want to make sure that we do them and they're edited and everything's good. So with that said, Kendria, do you have anything you'd like to say opening wise?
I'd just like to say welcome, and I hope that this is going to be helpful and that we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions and clear up a lot of, I guess, issues that many people may be having in terms of starting with the system this first time or this first year.
All right, thank you. And we're not going to unmute anyone and take questions at this point, but feel free to send your questions to us. And I know when you got the notice about this webinar, it may have had Shannon Mattern's email. That email is no longer valid, so you'll need to email Kendria or myself. Kendria or myself, and we will be able to direct you to the resource or provide an answer for you. So let's kind of go ahead and let's take a look at the approver unit. Kendria has made a handout for you that is going to be available, and it is available right now in the handout section. And she kind of took it from the new website ANA has created, and it has a lot of information here with clickable links. And a lot of your questions are, what does ANCC require that I report? And right here, these eight items is what we are asking for: date and range of activity, title of name, target audience, total number of activity participants, total number of nurses. So remember, when you do have an event, you are counting everyone, not just the nurses there. Anybody who has the potential to take that CE and use it, you're counting them. Anybody who has successfully completed the activity, you're counting them. Number of nursing credits offered and number of contact hours offered upon completion. Whether the activity was direct or jointly provided. If the activity received commercial support, and the amount of commercial support received. So I'm kind of going to pull up last year's. This was one of the old submissions that ONA did, and as you can see, we had all of our approved providers here. We did this for our approved providers, and we did this for our individual activities. So remember, when you are an approver unit, you have both of those things to think about. And we'll get into the provider unit in a little bit. But let's go ahead and start with the approver unit. I have my NARS system pulled up here. So if you have your screen pulled up and you're not on a phone or anything, you can see where I'm going to be clicking and what I'll be viewing. The NARS on the home page, right now these links, they need to be redirected. So refer back to this nice handout Kendria made for you. All of the links are here, and that's in the downloaded section. All right. So this is just my organization. We're accredited approver. I'm the lead nurse planner. it has me in here, and you can edit your organizational profile at any time. You can do that. And my organization, this is just another thing that you can edit. Now I kind of want to pull up providers here. Remember that if you have an approved provider in your approver unit, you're going to have them listed here, and they all should be in the NARS system. I know some of you have put them in yourself, or you have educated the approved provider on how to put their own information in. And at any time you want to go to an approved provider and you are questioning an activity that they've done, or you got maybe a complaint, it's highly encouraged that you have your approved providers use NARS as a live tool. So if I wanted to go into Kent State University, I can look at their organizational profile, and then I can view their activities. They have all closed activities because they have submitted their attestation, but I can pull up and I can view, okay, they did give that activity. And then I can view it and I can see what they said. They said 1 hour of instruction. I know that 9 participants came. So you have all of that information that you can go and look at providers. And I don't know about you guys, but if you have a lot of approved providers, a lot of times, the primary nurse planner will change, and a lot of them are educating the new people coming on to make sure that their information is updated. So this should be the most up-to-date information. And if it's not, then you can reach out and make sure that it gets updated. So I really like having up-to-date information. And Kendra will probably talk a little bit later, but they have increased the number of users up to 20, which I think will be very helpful for the providers. Batch activity upload, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. Kendra will go over some things. And we have Andrea who will be making another video for us. And I think her step-by-step videos is going to help you. I know a lot of you have had issues with just 1 or 2 things, and you're doing it right probably, but one little thing's off, and that's why it's giving you an error. So yeah, this is your way to get in there and look and see what your providers are doing. Now this is your own, so activities, this is you as an approver unit. So when you do your individual activities that you're approving, this is where you keep all that information. So, we do quite a few here at ONA, so we have a lot. And it's nice because it's split up into courses, regular scheduled series, internet live. You can view all closed activities in just one big section if you want, and then the activity type is there, or you can do it by breakout, however you want to do it. And then you can download your activities if you want to save them to your desktop. If you just don't feel comfortable leaving it all on here, which some people don't, that's fine, but it's a really great system and it's awesome just to work from. But yeah, you can download all of the files that you have in here. Activity search, if you get a complaint or you need to look up something, you have the ability to go to an approved provider and search by activity, and you can also search your own activities. Now, reports. I kind of wanted to come to here and show you something. So remember that each approved provider unit has to click the attestation button. So what you do is you go down to annual attestation button, and I'm looking at everyone, and it's defaulted to 2008 now. So we want to go to 2017, generate report, and I can see everyone who has submitted their attestation. And we have 100% now who have submitted. So I know that we are good to go. But this report, you should definitely look at it to make sure all of your approved providers have submitted their annual attestation. So once you do that, you double check, make sure everyone's good to go. Then you go to activities and you look at your own activities. And we have one open activity that we're going to close out, but I wanted to show you guys that what it looks like with one activity. And then we'll close it out. So I can actually do that right now, just to show you how I'm going to do it. Oh, wait, it's not working. There we go. All right. Just put one, save and quit. All right. So I closed out that activity, and all of my activities are closed out. So I've double checked that all of my approved providers have submitted their annual attestation for 2017. I've double checked that all of my activities are submitted. And now I can go to view program summary, and I can push the attestation button and and I can send my report to ANCC. Kendra, I believe, did say the demographics report is still due, correct, Kendria?
So the demographic report information change form is only due if you have a change that's required to be reported per the ANCC criteria. If you do not have any changes to your provider unit in the last year that are required to be reported, then you just need to make sure that your information is up to date in the NARS system and click attest, and your annual report is complete.
Perfect. That makes it a lot easier. So yeah, once you have those two things done in the approver unit side, you can click your attestation button, and ANCC will have your information for the year.
One thing that I want to just kind of piggyback on and say is that for the providers, this is the same thing that you would do. For our accredited providers, you'll want to go through, make sure all of your activities are closed. You'll want to attest that your data is complete for the 2017 reporting year, and then you will be done. If by chance you attest too soon or too early, you can contact ANCC and we can remove the attestation for you. Same thing for your approved providers. If they find that they need to make changes to their 2017 activities and they've already attested, the approver unit or a designated contact of the approver unit can go in and remove the attestation for your approved providers. So I just want to point that out and make sure that you all know that you're able to do that.
Yeah, and I was just actually going to show that, and I'm blanking, but so I pull up my approved provider, I click on their name, and then
go to view program summary,
and then I remove the attestation right here. And so if universities, hospitals contacted me or Sandy, we would be able to remove their attestation for them. They do not need to contact ANCC. They can contact you, and you have the ability to do that.
Right.
Okay. So activity types, you know, I'm trying to see an activity here. Continue. Kendria has made, I believe it's in the manual, a definition of the types of activities, correct, Kendria? It's in the manual? Yep.
Yes, that's correct. And I'm actually going to be updating. So Before the old website went down, I made changes to include the last, I believe, 6, which were manuscript review, test item writing, committee learning, performance improvement, internet searching and learning from teaching. So there are more elaborate definitions for those 6, because I believe that we didn't really have anything before that, but now we do. On the new website, it may not be updated yet because they're still in the process of making sure that they change over all of that information. But also on the last webinar, there was a document that I created, a PDF with the activity types that had all of them updated, and they should have all of their definitions. But I think, Joe, if you might be able to, send that back out, or we could resend it again once we're done with this webinar.
Yeah, I'm actually, as you're talking, I was looking for that on my screen. So when I give it back over to you, I will find it and I will pop it in the, actually here it is. I'm putting it in the Dropbox, or I'm sorry, the new handouts. So it is uploading. So if you see a second handout pop in, and Kendra, this is it, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I put it in the handouts, and I know some of you can't download handouts right now, but we will send it in an email probably.
Right.
All right. And I think, I don't know if I clicked user management. This is where you add your new users. And Kendra, oh no, I told you guys, Kendra did make it so we can have 20 people, because I know that was a lot of people's issues is, I have 20 nurse planners. How am I going to do this? So you can have up to 20 people. I just caution you, make sure that the people that you're putting in are educated on it. It's a very intuitive program, but someone could click add it, the attestation, and that will just cause you to have to do one more step. Kendra, is there anything that you want me to point out before I hand it over to you?
No, not at this time. If I think of anything along the way, then I'll let you know.
Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Kendra and let her show her screen, and I will be quiet while she tells you her expertise.
Okay, perfect. So what I wanted to do first is just go over the annual reporting requirements page on the new site and just show everyone where everything is, because I know it, and I want to just say I thank you all for your patience as we transition over to this new site, and I know that you've experienced some broken links and things like that. So like I said, I appreciate your patience, but I did want to show you this so that you could see that the information is there. Right now, because there is a delay with updating all of the language on the site, it may be a little confusing. So I want to point out a couple of things just to make sure that it's clear. So here on the annual reporting requirements page, the way that you can get here is by going to ANCC. When you click on ANCC, it will take you to another page. You will scroll down to where it says accreditation here. You'll click on accreditation. And then over here in your left-hand navigation, you'll click on primary accreditation. And under primary accreditation, you'll see annual reporting requirements, and that's where you'll click. So this will bring you to the new annual reporting requirements page. As Joe already highlighted, it tells you what does ANCC require that I report. It's right here. I do know that this says reporting year 2016. That's because the language has not been updated prior to digital transformation. So if it says 2016, it's 2017. Nothing has changed. Your reporting year is 2017. Some of this language will say that you can still submit using the old CE summary, but that is not true. Everything must now be done through the NARS system. All of the information on how to submit through NARS is down here. So you have your NARS user manual, you have your NARS FAQs, the very first webinar we ever did on NARS. We also have the provider tab delimited template, which would be the same template that the approved providers would use. And then for the approvers, we have the IAA template. Now, the difference in the IAA template is that you're able to put in the organization name. So there is a field, I want to say a column that's further down at the end of the document that will allow you to put in your organization name, because we know that when you're uploading those individual activities, you need to know which organization it is for. So that's the difference between the IAA template and the provider, an approved provider template. There's instructions right here on creating the tab delimited file. And all of these links here on this website should work. So please go here for now until we get these links into the NARS system. As you see, it still says here that we can have up to 5 users, but you are able to have up to 20 users designated in NARS. You can give them information, or you can give them credentials to log into the system, or you can select, or you can opt not to do that. And the way that you do that, I'll show you later when we talk about user management. I also want to point out that organizations can update their own demographic information in the system. The only thing that users are not able to update should be their accreditation status and their name. So if you have a name change, you would need to contact ANCC in order for us to be able to change your name in the NARS system. You'll still have all of your same data, you'll just have a different name. Same thing for approver units. If your approved providers have a name change, they would need to contact you, and you would be able to update their information in the NARS system. So that's pretty much it here that I wanted to show you, that everything is on that page. The next thing I want to go to is where our FAQs have moved to. So when you click here on this NARS FAQ section, it should take you to our general FAQs. And about NARS right here is where you will find the NARS FAQs. You'll also see a link to the NARS reporting system. You'll see all of the activity types here, which may not be updated yet. Yes, so see, here's the old language. So use the NARS activity type definitions PDF that Joe put into the handout section of this webinar. We'll also send it after. There are very common questions and answers down here in the NARS FAQs. I particularly want to bring your attention to open and closed activities. And the reason I want to do that is because there's a lot of confusion between an open and closed activity, what NARS defines as an open and closed activity, and what ANCC requires that you report. Those are two totally separate things. So yes, there may be more information under what NARS requires for you to have in order to recognize an activity as open or closed, and it's not going to necessarily correspond with what ANCC requires that you report. So I just want to point out that that key difference. So make sure that whenever you are looking at your activities and wondering what ANCC requires that you report and what's the difference between what an activity means when it's open or closed, those are two totally separate things. So while we're talking about that, I also want to show you a section that's very helpful when you're doing a batch upload and you're looking for what the NARS system requires if an activity is open and or closed. In the NARS user manual, there is a chart. It's Appendix A, Figure 1. This chart here will tell you what data is required in the field to open or close an activity record. So for each column in the batch upload, it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes across to around 80 to 81 columns. In this chart, it will tell you the field name, the template. It'll tell you the type or format of the text that needs to go in that field. So in that first column, there needs to be text in the field. Is this data required? Is data required in the field to open the activity record? Yes, data is required to be in that field in order for the NARS system to recognize that activity record. Is data required in the field to close the activity record? Yes, their data must be in that column or in that field in order to close the activity record. This is where we've sort of attempted to try to explain what it relates to. And then this last column right here. So this last column is going to give you example data of what needs to be in that field. So for instance, for my providers and approved providers, template A needs to be in that first column for each activity record that you put on your Excel spreadsheet. And I'll show you that in just a few moments. So that's just an example. Same thing with, with ANCC activity ID, this says no, there is not data required in that field. Now, over here, this one can be a little confusing because it says, yes, every activity must have either a provider activity ID or ANCC activity ID, but not both. So now let me explain that a little bit. So the ANCC activity ID is assigned by the NARS system. You do not need to put anything in that field. However, what has been pointed out to me is that when you're doing a batch upload, you have to have at least a provider activity ID. So this provider activity ID is a unique ID that you can put in that field in order for the NARS system to recognize it. I do know that some people were able to do a batch upload without putting anything in either field, and it recognized the activity. However, what I'm being told most recently is that a provider activity ID must be present in that field in order for the batch upload to complete. When you are working with the web interface and entering your activities manually one by one, you do not need to enter either of these items. The only time that you would need to enter the provider activity ID, and it needs to be a unique ID, is if you have two activities that are held on the same date, at the same time, in the same format, but in a different location. So a lot of people are getting errors where it'll say duplicate activity record. So it just means that you need to, make sure that you have a unique ID in the provider ID, activity ID column. And the way some people have gotten around this is by putting in a particular ID and then typing -A, so it would say, like this one over here says 8213C. They may say 8231D, 8231E if they have 4 or 5 activities that are held on the same date but in different locations. So this chart is very, very, very helpful when you're trying to figure out what activity or what activity data is required in the field to open or close the record. And again, I just want to say that it's not the same thing that ANCC requires that you report. So you may be putting information in fields. There shouldn't be too many of them. But I'm trying to find one right now that I could give you an example of. Actually, the one that I will draw your attention to is commercial support. So here, on this column or this row, it says that you don't need information in the activity or in the activity record in order to be able for the system to recognize it as open or closed. However, ANCC does require that you report the commercial support received. So that's where there can be a difference. So I would just make sure you familiarize yourself with this chart, and then just double check that you've collected all the information that you need to report for ANCC. And then for those differences, I believe this may be the only major difference. The others, where you are required to put in information to close the activity record, for instance here, hours of instruction, which is different from the number of nursing credits. It can be different from the number of nursing credits. It doesn't always have to be, excuse me, let me correct that. But for instance, in the past, we haven't asked for hours of instruction. We've asked for just the number of nursing credits. So those are some of the differences that I kind of want to point out. But like I said, familiarize yourself with this chart. The other thing is where it says valid entries, your valid entries are yes or no. So you can't put NA or 0 in a field that requires something that's yes or no. So make sure that you're paying attention to those things whenever you're trying to do your batch uploads, because those small things will cause errors in your document. So while we're talking about batch uploading, I do want to bring up the tab delimited template. So this one is for provider units and approved providers. A couple of things. Yes, I know it says ANCC activities 2016 down here, but you are able to use this for 2017. This tab name does not really matter down here. So if you wanted to, change it, you could do that as well. As you'll note, when you hover over the columns, it should do a pop-out for you that will give you more context around what is required, or the format of the data that is required to be put into those cells. So here, template A would need to be all throughout. So if I'm going to add an activity here, the first thing I need to type in is template A, because otherwise the NARS system will not recognize it. One helpful hint that I would like to show you is that if you copy the top first rows and paste them below, this ensures that you are keeping the formatting and not stripping the formatting from the document. So if you have multiple activities to enter, you can copy those rows and then you can highlight them, right click, and you want to clear the contents, but you will still have the same thing. And then for template A, you could copy it all the way down. So it will repeat. And then you can enter in the rest of your information. One thing that people were pointing out to me is that when you go to enter the date into this column, it changes from the 03/08/2017. It changes from the 03/08 to just 3/8. It takes out the leading zeros. That should not matter when you're doing your information. Also, when you're entering in your activity start date and your activity end date, you want to put the actual start date of the activity and the actual end date of the activity. So for each year, your activity start date and end date would be the same, but your reporting year would be what changes. And the information that you're putting in for your totals and your commercial support received will only correspond with that reporting year. So each year when you go to do this upload, it will recognize the activity, and then it will update the information for that reporting year. The same thing goes throughout the year. If you wanted to, let's say you wanted to batch upload your activities quarterly. So the first 3 months you go through, you put in all your activities. You have some that are going to continue throughout the year, and you have some new ones to add. It will take all of that information and upload it into NARS. When you go to re-upload your document, the only thing that you would need to do is add your new activities that you've done over that time period and update your totals on any of your other activities. If you had no changes, NARS will just recognize it as there were no updates, and it will only add the new activities you've added to your spreadsheet, and it will only update the totals for those activities that you've already entered. So you're not set to have to wait until the end of the year to do a batch upload. You can do it multiple times throughout the year. Another thing that I want to point out is that last year what we did is we did hide columns. So you'll see how we took these and we hid a lot of these columns because we wanted to make it as easy as possible in order for you to be able to kind of adapt to the new template, because we know that there are a lot of columns on this sheet that are not required for you to report in. So what you want to do when you do download these forms is always make sure, and if you do hide your columns throughout the year, you want to make sure that you right click and unhide those columns. So if you've hidden them because you want to make it easier for your provider unit or approver unit, you want to make sure that you unhide them before you get ready to do your batch upload. For commercial support received, when you go to enter in the dollar amount, I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy. I'm making myself dizzy scrolling. You're going to want to make sure that you do not enter in a $sign or any other characters. If you hover over the top column again, it should tell you the format of the text that should go into that that column. Same thing with hours of instruction, same thing with number of credits offered. And then, like I said, please also refer to the chart in the NARS manual, this chart here, Appendix A, Figure 1. For IAAs, my individual activity applicants, it would be the same thing. The only difference would be that the template in the first column would be template B. It would say template B and not template A. And then the other difference is that there is a section down here where you can add the name of the organization right here. So these columns were added by the developer to make sure that the NARS system would recognize individual activity applicants. So those are your differences in those templates. Everything else would be the same. I know that for a lot of individual activity applicants, you don't collect the number of participants that you've had. That's fine. In that instance, you would enter 0 in those columns. So Joe, is there anything that you'd like to highlight for the approvers side more?
No, actually not for the approver sides, but I will have you throw back the screen sharing presentation responsibility to me. I've done a facelift here on the NARS reporting system, and I now have the provider unit pulled up, so I can show people who are who keep saying, I don't have that tab. This is what your NARS will look like if you're an accredited provider. So you'll have home, my organizations. This is your activities. So it's just the same as the approvers have. Program summary. This is where you click your attestation, so it's right there at the top. And then user management if you want to add new users. So this is for the accredited providers. A little less buttons and a little less reports that you have to run or check, but I think it's quite easy to figure out. And yes, this webinar will be recorded. We will have it as a reference for you moving forward. With the new website, I am sure there will be updates coming out for you to reference where to go. So yeah, just keep waiting for references and updates, and we definitely will get them to you. Um,
Yes.
yeah, but with go ahead, Ken.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, but with the approver NARS and the provider NARS, they're pretty similar. There's a little bit of difference. You know, manually entering all of the activities, it can be done. I know that it can be done because I've had approved providers who've had to enter over 200 activities. So it can be done. And then the batch uploading, that is a little higher skill level. So we definitely want to make sure that you have the reference to that. And that's why we're making all of these references for you, and that's why Kendra has gone over the tab deleted Excel file. We'll have Andrea make another video for you, so that will be there. And if you are able to batch upload, you're ahead of the game there, because that is going to be a little higher skill for some people. But that's really all I wanted to say. All right, back to you, Kendra.
Okay. So there's two other things that I just want to show on batch uploading before I move on. So one of those things is pointing out that the only time you have to put in a city and state or a location would be when you have a course or a regularly scheduled series. Those are the only two where you would need to put in a location. If you're doing it through the web interface manually, you'll notice that if you select anything other than a course or regularly scheduled series, the location, city, and state disappear. That's because they're not required to be reported. The other thing I want to point out is when you get ready to convert your activity file for batch uploading, you'll want to make sure that you delete your header row. And then you're going to want to go to File, Save As. When you click down here, you're going to save it as a text tab delimited file. I'm going to save it to my desktop right now. So when I go to open that file, it's going to look a little interesting. And trying to open it because I want you guys to see it, because I have had people ask, is it supposed to look this way? Looks a little weird.
And while Kendrick's looking for that, I'll just say I am looking at all the questions you guys are asking, and I will have a transcript of these questions. Kendra and I will talk about the questions, and we'll make sure when we send out an email to make sure that maybe these questions are answered. A lot of the questions that are being asked, the reference that we gave you, those are in the first webinar we did. So a lot of your questions can be answered that way. A lot of your questions you're asking can be answered in the manual. So look at your references. Try to use your references, figure it out. And if you're still stumped, reach out to us. But some of the questions that you guys are asking, I know we haven't addressed. And so we will make sure that those are put into a frequently asked question.
Yes, and as we're updating, the reason why the website hasn't been updated in terms of the FAQs and things like that is because of the whole digital transformation. So as we are out of the weeds with digital transformation, we'll be able to have the website reflect more accurate data. But I'm I wasn't able to open up that text file, but it does look a little funny when you download it. It was just something I wanted to show you so that everyone could see, because like I said, I did get a lot of questions on was the file supposed to look like that when you're doing a batch upload, and the answer is yes, it is supposed to look like that. So the next thing I wanted to move on, oh, one more thing, I'm sorry, before I get out of batch uploading. There are a lot of hints that I want to share. So I should probably do this on this one. So if you have multiple sources of commercial support, what you're going to do is copy your commercial support fields, and you can place them here, and you'll just keep pasting for however many you have. But for each source of commercial support, you'll want to make sure that you list this information. And it's that simple. Just, copy these fields. Now, one thing I do want to point out is if I delete these and unhide these, you'll see that they do have a section for second support source. And this was actually pointed out to me by one of your wonderful colleagues, so I appreciate that. So it does have the ability to give you up to 3. If you have more than 3, you could just copy and paste those fields. If you have 8, you could copy and paste all 8 of them. And then you would just enter in the information for your activity. So that's how you would do multiple sources of commercial support. And that's for both documents. Some of the common errors that I get are that the header row was not deleted. So like I said, make sure you're deleting your header row. Some of your columns may contain special characters, so make sure you look very carefully. There might be a period here, although it shouldn't allow you to put in a period. But for some of those documents that may have the formatting stripped, it could allow you to put in a period in certain places. The same thing with your commercial support sources. You want to make sure that there's no $sign or commas or any other special characters in there. It just needs to be the decimal. Sometimes people have issues even though they haven't put anything, any special characters. Everything looks correct. I've had some just copy and paste all of their activities and paste them into a new Excel document, and it would upload fine. It could just be a glitch with the template that you're using. Another common error is the same activity on the same date. So if you were to have 2 activities that were on the same date, you'll notice how here they have provider activity IDs that they put in, and they have an A, B, C, D. Some providers I know do this for every activity. So, it's really up to you as to how you want to do it. However, if you are doing the batch upload, you'll want to put something in this field to be on the safe side. But for some of you who have not had to do that or have not had any issues, then let me know, and I'll see if I can talk to the developers about why that might be. Also, make sure that you delete your sample data out of your Excel file. So make sure you clear this contents before you upload. I've had people contact me about mysterious activities appearing in their organization's profile that they didn't upload. And then I noticed that it was the sample data. So make sure that you do that before you try to upload. Next, what I'm going to do is go over to the user management tab on NARS because I want to show you some things there. So in the NARS reporting system, right here under user management, you're able to give access to as many, well, to up to 20 designated users as you would like. So as many as you would like designated, up to 20. You'll go to your user management tab, and you'll click add a new user. And then you'll click on, well, for me, you'll click in and you'll add in their name. So I'll say Kendria Jackson, and then my email address. Now, when I go to click save, it gives me this pop-up that says, would you like NARS to send an email to this user notifying them of this update? If I don't want them to be a designated user, but I just want their information in there because they are one of my nurse planners, I would click no. If I would like for them to get a set of credentials where they would be able to log into the NARS system and make edits and upload on behalf of the organization, then I would click yes. I'm not going to do it right now, but that is how you would add a new user to your profile. And you'll want to make sure that you've selected, of course, the right user profile. Yours, of course, won't have this many. My approver units, you may have that many because you'll have several in there, but that's how you will do that. One common thing that I've been noticing when people don't receive their credentials, or they do receive their credentials and then they try to go and reset their password at a later date, they get a error message that says email and or organization ID is invalid. This is because sometimes there is an error if you try to copy and paste the email address into this field. So what you'll want to always do is manually type the email address into these fields when you're adding your users in. Also, under the user management tab, you can find a user. So this will come in handy for if you need to update a record. So let's just say you wanted to update this information. They got a new email address. They changed their name, changed their address. You'll want to go here and you'll want to click or X out and then add the new email address in there and then hit save. And then what that will do is it will notify the user of the update. Oh, for resetting passwords, you'll want to go to, you'll want to log out and you'll want to go here. So if your organization or if your user does not remember their password, they can go to the login site and click request a password, as long as they have the email address that they were registered with and as long as they have their organization ID. So they'll click request a password, type in their name, ANCC organization ID, and request password, and they should receive credentials to the system. Another thing that I want to point out is that sometimes users get an error message if they do not have a, if they do not have a primary nurse planner or lead nurse planner designated. So sometimes when doing the batch upload or when trying to search for a report or anything like that, this information here will be blank, and that can cause an error in the system. So please, when you're putting in your approved providers, always make sure that you have a lead or primary planner designated in that field. The other thing that I just want to remind approver units of, and I know that you're doing a very good job of this, is reminding your approved providers to contact you if they have issues with the NARS system. We always direct them back to you just because we don't know if, it's something that you would like. Some of our approver units don't want to give access to their approved providers, and some, would like to have tighter management of that. So we always direct them back to you. So just remind your approved providers that I know they may receive something from the NARS system that says, please contact NARS at ana.org. But you'll want to remind them that they should be reaching out to you if they need assistance with the system. And then the last thing that I just wanted to talk about is the demographic information change form. I know we touched on it briefly earlier, but if your information has not changed, if there's nothing new that you need to report in terms of what ANCC requires in the manual that you report in terms of changes, then you do not need to submit a separate demographic information change form. You just want to make sure that all your information here is up to date. All of your contacts are up to date. If you have other users, that they're up to date, and then you should be all set. Like I said, if you have a name change, that is something that you will want to let ANCC know, because you won't be able to change that in here. You would still need to let ANCC know of a name change because it's required by the criteria. But what I'll do is I'll also see about adding a link to the demographic information change form in the NARS system. And then I'll also email out that demographic information change form separately so that you have it. But and if you want to know what ANCC requires or the changes that you are required to be reported, you can reference the manual, and it's on pages 18 and 19. So that's where you can find that information if you need to report a change. But other than that, you do not need to submit a form, because going forward, what we hope to do after everyone has successfully completed this year of reporting, we're going to do an audit of all of our systems to make sure that the information matches across everything. And then we're going to use our NARS system as the way of getting in contact with you. So if that way we don't have to, worry about one person getting an email, the other person didn't get it. We'll pull all of the information from NARS, and it'll have the most accurate information there for when we're sending out notices or ANCC communications and invoices and different things like that. So that's why it's important to make sure your information is up to date. One last thing, you can change your password. If you look up here in this top right-hand corner, you can change your password to a password that is much easier for you to remember than the jumbled letters and numbers that they assign to you. So please do go in and change your passwords. Your users can go in and change their passwords. It'll make it much easier. But yes, that's all I have. Joe, do you have anything else?
No, thank you. I think we gave them a lot of information. This will be recorded. We will send it to you. We will look at your questions that you submitted, and we will get answers to the ones that if there's no reference to. But if there's a reference, we will probably direct you to that reference for the questions that you asked. But thank you, Kendra. I think you did an excellent job on explaining everything. Perfect reference.
Great. Yeah, like Joe said, if you have any other questions or concerns, please do reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And I thank you for bearing with us, like I said, because I know this has been a huge transition, not only in terms of just the system itself, but also with us having digital transformation happen last week. So,
all right. Thank you, Kendria. Thank you, everyone, for coming. All right. Everyone have a good day.